Hey, this is Mark Leach with Simpson Math, and in this video, I'll be demonstrating the annotations features within D2L, which you can use while evaluating student work. I'm doing this for my colleagues at Temple College, and I'll be showing you both essay-style submissions and picture-style submissions like I use with my math students. So regardless of what you teach, you should be able to find something to help you better evaluate student work and give them easy feedback in this online age. So just to be clear, what are annotations? So imagine you have a big stack of tests or essays or homework in front of you that you need to get grading. You take your pen and you start grading away, writing notes, circling things, adding comments. What we're doing with the annotations features is we're doing that just digitally. And before we had this feature, we could only really add feedback by just typing in. And I would spend most of my time kind of just describing to students where even in their work I'm talking about. But now we're able to highlight, underline, write comments with our handwriting, write comments with typing and putting the type directly where we need it. Lots of options so that way we can give good constructive feedback for our students and in a quick, timely manner. So at this point, I'm assuming that you know how to set up a D2L Dropbox submission folder. If you don't, ask colleagues, your department chair, or you can get in contact with me. Again, my name is Mark Leach. That is M-A-R-K-L-E-E-C-H. You should be able to email me from that and get a hold of me. So here I'm looking at just a Dropbox folder, and I have just some dummy students and dummy work put in here, so that way I can communicate with you, and we're going to get started with an essay style submission. So one note, this is January 2021. Last month, December 2020, D2L pushed an update, and so the first time you log in, this might have a little thing that pops up. I went ahead and clicked a button to turn it on. You could turn it off for the changes. At some point, they'll make the changes happen, and that'll be the way that is. And all that they changed was not the annotations features. They did that a few years ago, and they haven't updated that since. What this is just the parts on this outside a little bit, and then also they made it so that way you can work on phones. So you can actually have all access to all these features on your smartphone or a tablet. The only thing that changes when the window gets really skinny, this space over here on the side pops down to the bottom with a little drawer that you can make disappear. Another nice thing that they changed was this drop down, so you can go between the different submissions of that same student. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, just a sec. There is a nice obvious navigating slider here, so if this bar is a little bit too big or too wide or whatever, you can adjust that. My monitor is nice and big, so I don't usually have a problem with that. But I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so we can see a little bit better and better position this. All right, so over here on this far left side, I'm not going to spend too much time with this. This is just a navigation viewing properties. Nothing really, just for you. So this is a thumbnail page so that we can easily find the page that you're looking for, especially if you want to just quickly jump down to like the works cited page. Sorry, I know I'm not an English professor, I teach math, so sorry if the works cited is not right or too close to the conclusion. I'm sure it probably should be on its own page if it's not the right format. Sorry, you get the idea. So whenever something is active within D2L annotations, you'll see that it turns blue. So if it's active, it's blue, and you can click it again to turn it off. So that's the thumbnails. Typically, I don't have that open, but that might be handy to you, especially if you have many, many pages and you're needing to jump around. Additionally, you can just page this way. I will just usually use a scroll wheel on my mouse. I'm on a desktop with a physical mouse right now. This gear is just going to adjust how you look at the pages. Typically, I would just leave these on the far left. There are page rotations options, but if you're looking at an essay, probably they didn't come in sideways. My students, when they submit images, sometimes those are sideways, so then I'll use those to rotate or fix those mistakes. So that's where the gear is. If you're zoomed in really, really far, so that's the Zoom Plus, and you need to move around easily, you can click on this hand to be able to move that around, but I'm not a fan of that. just because if you have the hand selected, you can't highlight anymore. If you're working with an essay, that's a pretty big deal. Next, this fit page, if you click that, it toggles between whole page, so it fits from the top to the bottom of the page, and then fit width. Probably if you're grading these essays, you want to have fit width, and maybe even you can zoom in just a little bit more as well. I'm on a desktop, and so I can press Control. I have a physical mouse, so if you have a physical mouse with a scroll wheel, if you press Control and then scroll wheel up, you're going to zoom in, and scroll wheel down, you will zoom out. That's a nice feature. You also have, if you're on your laptop or on a phone or tablet, you should be able to pinch to zoom. And if you're on your laptop and your mouse is over here, that should pinch to zoom correctly there. So you should be able to use those options to be able to move around your page. One more thing just to help for navigation, and that's this the search tool. So you can click on it, or you can actually hit Control F, which is find. As long as you're clicked and in this space, the find will pop up here instead of the full web browser. So why might that be handy? Well, I'm going to just go ahead and jump way down to my works cited and say I'm an English teacher. I know, stop laughing. And I want to find all the instances when Bradbury was cited. So I can press search or hit Control F, and let's type in Bradbury. And so here it highlighted one of these instances, and I see it says 1 of 3. So I'm going to press this right arrow, and it's like, oh, well, here's one time when he was mentioned, cited, and then a reference at page 54. And then here's another one according to Bradbury, and then at page 142. You can also do the same thing for this one, so I can type in like Block and see what happens. And there's that time when Block and Seaman were mentioned. Again, just a note in case you're trying to read my essay about Fahrenheit 451, it is nonsense. Not because I want to write a good essay, but because this is just lorem ipsum, it's just dummy filler text, just for the purpose of communicating. All right, so now let's talk about the tools, the good juicy bits. You're like, cool, Mark, how do I actually do these annotations? Well, one, you could, but you probably, if you're doing an essay, wouldn't do this, but you could literally like underline by hand, put little check marks, say wow. You could, add those notes, but that's probably not what you're wanting to do. Now, how did I do that? Within annotations, if you select a tool, and that's what this is a little drawing tool. If you hold your cursor over there, it'll say what it is. The drawing tool, I'm able to then just move my mouse and where I click and hold and then drag, and I can make these basically draw or write. Now, I have options, and I'll go over these a little bit later whenever I'm going to be using this a little bit more. But the idea here is that when the blue is active, that tool is active. If I'm wanting to like highlight or doing something else, I'm doing all these extra lines. So you need to click that blue marker again, and it disappears, and that drawing goes away, and I can now highlight or click and move around a lot easier. You can scroll wheel with the drawing tool active, so now I have all these lines, how to get rid of it. You're able to click and move these annotations around, make them bigger or smaller even, but then how do we get rid of them? 2 ways. This is true for highlighting and everything. 2 ways to get rid of things within annotations. One, have it selected, and then you notice that this thing pops up. If it's not selected, we don't have that menu bar there. Click this, menu bar pops up. Over here on the right hand side, we have a trash can. If it's really skinny, the trash can might be, and the options might be on the right, and the trash can might be on the left. But click the trash can, and it goes, oh, do you want to delete these annotations? Say yes. Bye annotation. I can also click it, and on my keyboard, press the delete or the backspace button. Either of those keys will work, and yes, I can delete them and they go away. D2L will try to group these together, so notice that this check and this wow, in my opinion, it's based on 2 things. It's based on time and distance. So I did the check and the wow, exclamation point, underline, really close together in time, so it kept those together. If I did the check waited a little bit, an extra second or two, and then wrote the wow, they probably would have separated them. I don't know of a way to separate them, but that doesn't really matter. I could, if I wanted to, erase one and keep the wow. That is one option. But I'm going to delete this altogether. So again, click, press delete, click, or you can go to the trash can, and those go away. Like I said, most likely the drawing is not as convenient and quick if you're wanting to grade these essays. So if you're wanting to grade essays, you're probably wanting to highlight text and then give some feedback about that. So we're going to do that with highlighting or underlining text and then using one of our two text features. There is a text highlight option, but it's not the most convenient thing. If you're wanting to do lots of quick highlight, it's the tool for you, but it's not forgiving because you can't really make edits. So I've wanted to highlight this piece and then this piece and then this piece, and whoops, I highlighted the wrong thing. Way too much highlighted. I'd have to delete that. I can't edit those endpoints. So I'm able to do lots of quick highlights, but like I said, it's not forgiving. So let me show you a better way. So one, how do I get rid of that? Remember, there's two ways to get rid of things within D2L Annotations. One, make sure it's selected. As you can tell, it's selected because it kind of thickens up. And you can go to the trash can, by annotation. They all go away. Or you can press, have it selected and press the delete or the backspace key, and that'll make them go away. All right. So if you're wanting me to highlight, Mark, and oops, sorry, let me get rid of the drawing. If you're wanting me to highlight and you don't want me to use a highlight tool, what should I do? Well, I have no tool selected, nothing up here selected. That is gray, but let me click off that. There we go. So let me just highlight. So just click and drag like you were just trying to highlight a sentence on a website or in Word or something like that. And then up pops 4 options. If you're on your phone or tablet, the options might pop up here instead of right above the text. So I highlight and I have 4 options, and they do just what they look like. You can highlight, strike through, you can underline, or you can squiggle. And all of these have different color options, so let me go through those. Let me select text highlight. It's blue, just like we saw a second ago. Now let's look at our options. I'm going to click it, and up drops down our options. Let me do that again. It's not there. I don't see any menus. I click the highlight, and down drops our menu. So I can have it be yellow, blue, green, or red. Those are my 4 options for highlighting. These other 2 options, one is for the opacity. You probably don't want to turn the opacity down on the highlighting. And then for highlighting though, leave it at multiply. What multiply does is it literally multiplies the mathematical numbers of those colors together. I was actually an art minor, really with the emphasis in computer graphics in my undergrad, so just enough to be dangerous. Color here is defined with red, blue, and green. Those are the primary colors of light. And so each of those have a value between basically 0 and 100%. For your math nerds, it's actually base 16. But 0 and 100%, and those get, literally those colors are going to get multiplied together. Black is all 0, so that's how that just remains black, and then the color then gets remained. So leave it at multiply. If you were to switch it to normal, notice it completely covers up, it's completely opaque, covers up the text behind it, so leave it at multiply. One interesting trick for why you have all these options, well, these are the options that we typically see within photo editing software for dealing with different ways of doing transparency. But one interesting one would be hard light. Don't really worry about what it does, but what it accomplishes is it basically changes the color of the text. The yellow was a little bit too harsh, but here's blue, green, and red for ways just to quickly make it be change the color. So if you want to maybe more subtly highlight something, that is an option, but typically just leave it at multiply. All right, so quickly the other 3, let me talk about defaults. So notice I have this set to, let me change this to green. So now if I highlight again, let me just highlight that word, Morbi, and then say highlight, because the last thing we used was green, then this next thing will be green. But if I want to change it to blue, then that's how that would work. All right, as expected, I can highlight and strike through, say, nope, I don't like that. You do have 4 color options, red, green, blue, and black, but let's just leave it at red because you're striking through the text. Again, we have these color and opacity options. In this case, normal makes sense because you're covering up that text. All right, we have underline. So underlines are there, that's green. Again, if I change this to be, let's say, blue underline, and then come over here and select underline, now it will be blue. So that's how we can keep those default colors. And lastly, let's do this squiggle. So let me highlight this, what might be the thesis in it. And one benefit, I noticed I'm doing this a few times because I wasn't quite getting that in. So I started at the end, but then the benefit of this kind of highlight is I can try it over and over again until I get just the right thing highlighted. Once you create the D2L annotation of the highlight, you can't edit it anymore. This time let's do the squiggle, and let's have it be red, because that thesis doesn't look very good. And I want to tell my student that I don't like that thesis. I probably should tell them what I don't like about it, other than it being too short, but let's leave that comment that the thesis is too short. So I'm going to select text here. So there's two ways to do text annotations. Let's just do this one. There's just the obvious text box. One reminder, one note again about these tools. Notice it's blue, so the text tool is active. Any changes I make here are going to make a change to my default setting. So here right now, my default setting is red with no color background, full transparency, full opacity. I'm typing in Helvetica with font 10. This is font 12, what's already typed here, so 10 will be just slightly smaller. So I can click and say, thesis needs to be longer. And then I can click off of this, and then click back on. Now I have these little handlebars, and I'm clicking just within it, and I can drag this around. Maybe I want to add the word, say thesis needs to be way longer. So I double click and do that again. Double click, and I can see be way longer. There we go. That makes that be a little bit better. You can also adjust this and make this be 2 lines, which does change the size of the font a little bit, and put it over here. Oh, you can't see it. There we go. Put it over there. Or I can put it back to where it was. There's no undo option here like within Word. So if you do something you don't like it, you just have to put it back yourself. So that's one way to do text. Maybe for some reason within this sentence, these two sentences, I want to say a lot of words to my student right now. Maybe this is, so what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to come over here to this sticky note option. Up pops a bunch of different symbols. I personally like this sticky note, literally the sticky note. So I'm going to have, so that's already selected. And I'm going to click, and I added a little sticky note and a note pops up. Now I'm going to go ahead and make that be green so it matches the green highlighting. And I'm going to add in something. Now let's say I've been grading for a while and I've come across this problem, this pet peeve for a while, and I'm going to add in both of these sentences. So what I have here is just a text document, and I've listed out some fake sentences here, but we're just pretending that these are some common critiques that I've been giving my students, and I'm going to add both of these to this note. So I've just highlighted, copied, and then I'm coming over here and pasting. I have a little bit extra returns. We can get rid of that one there. So what this has done is, so that way when the student is looking at this, they'll see this highlight, they see this green sticky note, and I can move this around if I want to. I could change it to be a little like billboard looking thing, or an arrow that maybe is pointing to that if I want it. But personally I do like the sticky note. Communicates that it's a note. And when the student hovers or clicks on it, it'll then pop up my full commentary. So these are two ways of doing text. Especially if you have a lot of text that you're going to want to say, this note in place is really convenient. If you just have a quick little thing that you want to say, and then you can fit between lines, then that's a pretty good idea here. So the strength and weaknesses, downside about this note is you would need to communicate with your students that when they see these shapes, these options here, that they hover over them so they see the feedback. Otherwise they might miss it. This is nice because it's in their face and it's visible, but otherwise it's kind of, it might be, you might have to talk a little bit shorter, have shorter phrases. I didn't think I did the background color. The only background color that might look nice would be maybe a gray here. It's a little bit too dark. But typically just probably leave it at no background color, which is a circle with a slash through it. All right, so that's pretty much it for this kind of annotation. So when you're working with your essays, you can search. That's nice, for especially for works cited. You highlight with your mouse, and you have these 4 options to be able to highlight and bring your attention to your students in 4 different ways by highlighting, striking through, underlining, or squiggles. And then you can add text to help explain what that is. And a big trick is to just this is just a notepad, a TXT document for common errors and common feedback. So you can just copy and paste, have a little bit of a repository here of just your phrases and feedback that you want to say, and then just work your way through the document with your students. So hopefully that helps for, oh, one more thing I forgot, stickers. I know it might be silly, but maybe on a rough draft or something, you want to maybe be cute or something, or leave a sticker. We like putting stickers on our students' tests physically, especially when they do really well. So how much you do a sticker within annotations? Well, it's within the text box. So it's going to start at font size 10, but I'll just change the font in a second. So I'm going to come over here and just click in this empty space, and I'm going to put in an emoji here. Now, if you're on your phone or tablet, you should be able to quickly and easily get to your emojis. If you're on an Apple computer, you have, I believe it's Control Command Space pops up the emoji keyboard. I'm on a Windows computer, so I'm literally just going to press the Windows key. That's the one that's bottom left corner. It looks like the Windows logo. The Windows key and then a period. What that does is it pops up the emoji keyboard. And you can search for things. So maybe let's say I want scissors because I want them to trim some words up. They're rambling. They have wordy sentences. So SCISS. There we go. So I'm just searching for that, and I can click it. Oh, I entered it a bunch of times. So there's my scissor. That's not a very pretty one, but I can make it be bigger, say 64, and that kind of had that be more of a symbol. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do that fire one that I had that you saw a second ago. So Windows period, and here's fire, and close that. Click off of it, click back onto it, and I can make the font be really big. Here I can even change my transparency if I want to kind of maybe be cute and put it over here or whatever. So you can put stickers on here, which maybe might not be your forte, but I like being cute, especially for those who do really well. Little just celebratory stickers, maybe things that have to do with their interests, or maybe with the problem or what they're working on. Here I'm clearly burning some books with Fahrenheit 451. So that's how the annotations work for these essays. Let's transition a little bit and talk about what to do for picture submissions. Why might picture submissions be interested for you? For math teachers, for me, it's pretty much all what my students submit. But maybe if you're working on a research paper and you have your students make note cards of all of their sources and their statements and their outlines, so you have their stacks of note cards, but you're doing remote learning like this, they could take pictures of their note cards or scan in their note cards and submit them that way using what I'm about to show you. They did a lab from home and you wanted them to take several pictures at different stages with the lab. This would be an easy way for them to put pictures into a PDF and send them to you. For me, for my math students, I have them do PDFs for me instead of just single pictures. So let me show you what that looks like. Whenever you're done with the student, let me go ahead and give the student the grade. Let's say that they made 9.5. Good job. I'm going to say publish. All right. You can always make changes to that, but if I said publish, that student just got a notification that something new was just done and graded. So if you make a change and do publish again, or actually update, they'll get a new notification about that change. You can also retract that to take that grade away if for some reason you made a mistake. All right, there is a right arrow here and also in the top right corner for you to navigate to the next student. So we didn't see this because I selected the grade, the PDF from the link a second ago. But if you see this, they're saying that it's a PDF and has a red dot because I have not viewed it. It is a new document for me. It has been unevaluated. It has that note. This is a little bit new here. And there are these 3 dots for some other options. So we can just click on that. It's going to download the PDF. So here's how I have my students, let me zoom in on it. Here's how I have my students submit their work to me. Is I have them take pictures of their work and turn it into a PDF. The way that I recommend for students to do it, because it's something that we all have it, is for them to take pictures and move it into Word, move their pictures into Word, and then save that document as a PDF and upload that PDF. Why do I want them to do PDFs? Well, one, in a second I'll show you what happens if they don't. They just embed a bunch of separate pictures. There's also file type issues. You'll see in a second how it can be a headache for you. So you want to have that be organized. You want them to organize their work into a PDF. Reason 2, you want them to organize their work. Sometimes if they just upload a bunch of images, they're probably going to be uploaded in the wrong order, and that's going to be frustrating for you to grade. And oftentimes, I've known students who they think they've uploaded everything they needed to, but they missed some things or they double uploaded some things. So then they're likely to make mistakes that way, which will then affect their grade. So by them making a PDF, PDFs for the most part are what you see is what you get. If they make the PDF and they open it up and they look at it and they see how it looks, and what they see with that PDF is generally how it's going to be when it's going to upload here. No weird, crazy changes. So if they're missing a picture on the PDF, they'll be missing it here. If it's in the wrong order on their end, it's going to be the wrong order here. So that way you can make sure that you tell them take care. This is major assignments. Turn them in well. So that's how I have them do that. There are also apps. So again, like I said, take pictures, put it into Word, import the picture into Word, save the Word document as a PDF. That's how that works. They could also use apps. There's like a Tiny Scanner app. There's an Adobe Scanner app. Just like through Office, through their OneDrive email account, there is something called Microsoft Lens, I believe, that they have access to download as their smartphone. They can use their smartphone or tablet to be able to scan things in there. So I require PDFs for my students, and so this is typically how many of them do. So let's talk about the drawing techniques here. So I will just select the draw tool and be like, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. And then maybe make a change somewhere to be like, oh, well, I mean, this is actually fine, but I can circle something if I want to. So let's talk about my drawing options here. So I have color options. We have a lot more color options than we did with the text highlighting. This is the background. Leave this blank. Like, look how obnoxious that is. Again, you press the trash can to make that go away. So we put that back to no background. And we have our opacity here. So in this case, I'm actually saying, my suggestion is change the opacity to not be 100. If the opacity was 100 and I was for some reason wanting to draw attention to this, and I accidentally maybe drew a bad box and I crossed through it, it's kind of hard to read that way. But if I made that same mistake, and let's put this back to about 66 or so, and I made that same mistake and I drew that box and accidentally kind of drew a line through that, they can still see what that is. There's that transparency there. So that transparency just a little bit adds to the readability, in my opinion. And you just have it on normal. If you want to do it on multiply, cool. It would kind of look more like a highlighter. When you're doing with the pictures, just one thing is that with an essay, 12 points is 12 points, and it'll look the same every time on your screen. But for the pictures, physically, the PDFs are going to be different sizes. So for some students, 3 point is going to be like the thinnest line ever, and you need to jump up a lot bigger to have the same relative amount of thickness. All right, so let me switch to Freeform Highlight. Fundamentally, the drawing and the Freeform Highlight are the same tool. They're just two different defaults. The default for the Freeform Highlight is that it's probably going to be bigger and set to multiply. So that way you can actually have it be highlighting like you'd expect. So the multiply does like what we mentioned earlier with that kind of highlightingness. Again, you can change colors and highlight easier. We have that multiply there. Depending upon, again, students are taking photos, so sometimes they might be kind of yellowish or grayish, so you might have to play around with the colors for those. You can do the same. Oh, let me talk about the eraser now. So maybe I don't want, I want to fix this cross out. So I can fix this cross out and make this size be a little bit smaller. I can be like, oops, I kind of didn't want to cross through that. I'm able just to, like an eraser, erase out that writing without getting rid of the whole thing. So that's what the eraser is for. Again, when the tool is blue, it's active. Click on it to make it go away. I have access to the same note, the same text. Depending upon, again, the size of the document, because if some students' documents are really physically big, this note, that note, sticky note, is like super duper duper tiny. It's like a little dot. So in that case, I'll try to use the text. So that's that. There is this line tool and rectangle tool. The only time I've ever really used the line tool is if for some reason the students were graphing lines and I needed to fix it. But for the most part, I just don't use this line tool. Search won't work because there's no words to search. What this is, it makes it go full screen. So if you really want to be able to view the student's work nice and big, that's what that is. You don't see the, I have my screen adjusted so you don't see the headline, the menu, but the menu was up there. All right, so that's how that works. That's the gist for this annotation. The benefit of this is you can draw your attention to your students' work. You can highlight, you can cross through things, you can add the text so that way you're giving the feedback directly where you're wanting to give it instead of having to just give overall over here. All right, let me just show you just a few. Oh, oops. So it does, if you try to advance without saving it, it's like, are you sure? So I'm going to go ahead and say publish, let's give them a grade. All the points, there we go, save. Okay, so here's another example. This is a student who they did their work digitally. Just wanted to show this as an example so you can mention this to your students. They did it in OneNote. So OneNote is a program that you have accessible to your students have for free with their email and OneDrive account. And so this student had it looked like probably a Microsoft Surface tablet or something that they used. You can also, if they have any tablet or something, they can use this as well. So that's them doing it digitally. So again, I can do the same thing, just like drawing on here. It did not save this as text. Sometimes again, if you use text, then you'd be able to highlight text, but I don't mess with that when grading math. I just use the drawing and the highlighting. All right, let's give them their grade and move on. All right, now we're entering into a little bit of troubleshooting area. So I've, oops, update, yep, it updated. Let me move on to the next one. So remember I said I want my students to submit JPEGs, sorry, to submit PDFs. Here I have a student who submitted 2 JPEGs. I'm going to show you why it's frustrating. We've already talked about the benefits of doing the PDFs. It's ultimately it's easier on you, and then make sure the students don't make a mistake. But let me show you what's going on here. So here's this JPEG. Yay, good job. Oh, maybe let's say I'm gonna nitpick on something. Put a star here. Add some text. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so I'm like thinking, okay, well, I might take off a point or two. I'm not real sure. Maybe if you're grading holistically, or maybe you have your rubric or whatever. But now I'm going to switch to this other document, their other picture they submitted. So I did this by coming up to this top drop down, coming down to this second one that's listed here. And it's like, oh, if you switch here, you're going to lose all this. It's like, oh, so I'm going to say cancel. And at this point, what I would do is select Save Draft. not publish, because that's going to ding the students, let them know, hey, I've published your grade, you got 0 points on it, and I haven't even looked at the second document. So we say save draft. So it goes, oh, it's saved as a draft, cool. Now I can switch. All right, so I'm able to look at this. Oh, the student kind of messed up here with this hole. I can draw their attention to it. That's a really gross arrow. And then I can add a note about the hole here, and I can add some words there. But and then change it to be purple, so it matches what I just drew. All right, so now I'm needing to add up what the student just did. I'm now having to remember. I'm going to have to say save draft. It's been a second. I forgot. I have to go back. Especially if you have like 3 or 4 pages that you're going to have to do this. It's a lot harder than having to just scroll through them. It's a bit of a nuisance on your end. And then again, the organization of them often will be submitted in the wrong order, or they might be rotated. It's really likely with JPEGs that they get rotated. And so then we can then give the student their grade. So that's why we like to do PDFs. I make a big deal for my at the beginning of the semester. That first week, their first assignment is to submit the notes from the first lecture. So really the only time I have them submit notes, just to make sure that they can submit multi-page PDFs. And if they don't submit multi-page PDF, I'm like, try again, get it done so that we know how to do it. All right, this last one is a little bit of troubleshooting. Is that this format is called HEIC. So if I select it to look at it, it says this file can't be previewed. This is a high efficiency file format. Many of the newer iPhones, the setting is by default is to take photos like this. Let me go ahead and click download. But you can't view them online. And so you'd either have to tell the students to change their settings so it takes it as JPEGs, which you can do. But if they move it into a PDF, then and they upload the PDF, then it works. So this is what downloaded. They sent me a picture of this nice, lovely fall scene. I just found some HEIC offline. So that's a bit of a nuisance. This is a bit of a troubleshooting issue that you can't do the annotations with that. You have to download it offline, grade it offline, and then type in the feedback here. It's doable. You can figure it out. So that generally I would then work with the student to say, hey, let me switch it to your pictures or JPEGs, but even better, have them do PDFs. Making students turn in PDFs covers a bunch of sins like that. All right, so what does all this look like? I've been doing this annotations. How do my students get their feedback? Well, when the student views their work, I'm not going to show you that. I'm going to impersonate the student in just a second, but I don't want to go to the grade book just so that way grades don't pop up, because I'm having to access a past class. So whenever they're viewing their grades, so over here, so these are some assignments over here. I could type out written feedback right here. I put in the key for my students, and so they have a link to the key. I put that in the overall feedback. And then, but right here, what you just created was this view inline feedback. Let me try to zoom in just a little bit on that. So this pops up for the students. It says view inline feedback. When they click that, it will then take them to the PDF for them to be able to view it. And when they do, they'll see exactly what you saw, except for all the editing options. They can hover over it. They can view all of your handwritten markings, notes, and highlights. And hover, if they have any notes like this, they hover over it and it pops up their work. So I'm going to pause the video a second. I'm going to impersonate this student so that way you can see what they see. There's another way to get to that. All right, so now I've impersonated a student. I'm looking at their Dropbox folders, and we can see the Dropbox category or folder here was annotations demonstration. If they were to click that, it would take them to a spot where they could upload, because I still have this particular assignment is active, whereas these others were closed. If they click on here or here, it actually takes them to the same location, but this does say that the feedback is unread, which if you're ever being sassy and want to come back and look to be like how much they do or don't read the feedback, sometimes that's a thing. But I know that they haven't looked at the file. So if I click on either of these, it takes us to the submission history, and they can access all of their submissions over here. But we're here right now, this one, the annotations demonstration. And here's this option that says inline feedback. If they click here under submissions, it's just going to download their PDF that they submitted. But here, if they click view inline feedback, this is the same link that if they were to be in their grade book. I would mainly have the students do it in their grade book. Then here, this is the exact document that we saw a second ago. They have the same kind of navigation tools, but none of the annotation tools. They can search and they can fit to screen here. So now we have the highlighting, underline the text here, and then if I hover over this right here, then they're able to see that highlight, that note. And it does a pretty good job of it. Since there's room at the top, it went up. If I scroll down, then it moves that note to the bottom. If this was really close to the side, it would move it over to on the left-hand side. So there's that note. If they were to download this and then open it up from the web browser or their own PDF viewer, it might not pop up on hover, but they could maybe click on it. It might look slightly different, but they do have access to that note as well. So that's what it looks like from the student point of view. So overall, we saw how we can highlight, we can add text, and we can draw using the annotation features to be able to help our students better understand the feedback that we give them about these assignments. If you have any questions about what you saw today, don't hesitate to contact me. Again, my name is Mark Leach. That's MarkLeech, and I'm in the math department here at Temple College. I'll take care, and I'll see y'all around.